Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely wild. We're looking at a fiery, high-pressure, philosophical debate that exploded entirely in the comments section of a niche internet blog. It's this intense clash of minds that gives us a literal front-row seat to what happens when ancient theology collides with modern internet discourse. So, get ready because things are going to get heated real fast.
Listen to this opening volley. Words are not your words. They are mind-control programs of the demiurge and his legions that have possessed you. Bam! I mean, what an explosive accusation, right? It's like we've just tuned in to the final round of an intellectual heavyweight championship. This isn't your average internet troll pounding away at a keyboard. This is a highly educated, fiercely passionate theological smackdown.
Section 1. The Internet Philosophical Duel. Okay, let's dive into this. How did we even get here? Well, back in July 2022, an author named Ouroboros simply published an article on his blog calling for a modernization of Gnosticism, an ancient esoteric spiritual movement. He definitely wasn't looking for a fight. He was just asking how to build a decentralized, living spiritual network for the 21st century. But almost immediately, his open invitation was met with a relentless intellectual assault, which brings us to a question we can all relate to. What happens when two passionate philosophers clash online? I mean, we all know how political or pop culture arguments spiral out of control and create echo chambers. But what happens when the subject is highly complex, ancient esoteric philosophy? Does the internet actually foster profound synthesis, or does it just accelerate dogmatic warfare?
So let's meet our two intellectual duelists impartially. On one side, we have Ouroboros, the author. He advocates for a modern, subjective, and open synthesis of spirituality. He's all about evaluating old texts and combining them with personal experience. And on the other side, we have his opponent, who we'll call the anonymous critic. Now, the critic identifies as a former ordained rabbi, a seasoned theologian, and literally a debate champion. He demands absolute, objective adherence to the strict purity of ancient, pre-Christian beliefs. It is the ultimate showdown, fluid modernism versus rigid traditionalism.
Section 2. Defining true Gnosticism.
So the crucial point is, to truly understand the sheer anger radiating from this comment section, we have to realize that the debate derailed because these two men fundamentally disagree on what their words even mean. Starting with the demiurge. As you probably know, in ancient Gnostic thought, the demiurge is this concept of a lesser, sometimes malevolent creator deity responsible for our flawed, physical universe. The critic fiercely believes that everything in this material world is corrupted by this being, and the only path forward is absolute purity and total rejection of the physical realm.
And this brilliantly illustrates the critic's main theological grievance, the clash over Barbelo versus Sophia. Basically, the critic furiously argues that true ancient believers honored Barbelo as the pure divine mother. He claims that modern thinkers, like Ouroboros, mistakenly worship Sophia, a figure the ancients sometimes viewed as flawed or even fallen. According to the critic, Ouroboros isn't just practicing a new spirituality, he's actively, dangerously mixing up the ancient lore and practically worshiping what the original text considered demonic.
When we map out their fundamental disconnect, the differences are stark. It's like night and day. The critic stands firmly on the side of the ancient and pre-Christian, demanding strict adherence to original myths. He views modern influences, like Carl Jung, for example, as absolute heresy. Ouroboros, on the other hand, is firmly on the post-Christian, psychological synthesis side, integrating diverse esoteric philosophies. The critic views Ouroboros' integration of psychology as toxic, whereas Ouroboros views it as a necessary, living evolution of thought.
Section 3. The Trap of Dogma.
All right, let's step back into the figurative boxing ring. It's fascinating and kind of wild to watch how quickly this exchange stops being a sharing of ideas and just evolves into heavy defensive posturing. The masks slip, egos flare up, and the accusations start flying. Just look at this quote from the critic. "I was the president of the theological debate team. I know how to debate like a scholar. I offered you a thrust and parry maneuver." He is literally treating this discussion as a sporting match to be won. He's actively trying to use formal debate tactics, like Occam's razor, to disqualify Ouroboros' definitions and just declare himself the victor by default.
In stark contrast, look at Ouroboros' frustration here. He says, "You have already condemned me and attributed thoughts to me that I absolutely do not hold." You can tell Ouroboros feels entirely trapped. He isn't trying to score points in a formal debate, he's trying to share his subjective spiritual journey. But he feels completely suffocated by the critic's dogmatic black-and-white categorization that basically brands him a heretic before he can even explain himself.
Section 4. The refusal to read. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the glaring standstill they hit. This is the climax of the duel, and it all centers around a specific piece of writing. Ouroboros actually authored a massive personal manifesto detailing his exact beliefs, called his Gnostic Pearls. And this creates the ultimate paradox. The critic demands that Ouroboros define his beliefs. Ouroboros says, "Great, I've spent years defining them in my book, The Gnostic Pearls. Please read it and give me your factual, harsh criticism." But the critic outright refuses. He argues that because he already knows Ouroboros is a modern heretic, reading the book would be a complete waste of his valuable time. So he demands answers but refuses to look at the very document containing them.
Looking at this neutrally, Ouroboros' defense against this dogmatism is pretty straightforward. He rejects blind adherence to ancient labels. He actively invites strict factual criticism of his actual text, not just assumed beliefs. He warns against religious echo chambers. And, most importantly, he argues that the critic's refusal to read, while simultaneously condemning him, is the exact same behavior displayed by the orthodox, book-burning inquisitors that ancient truth-seekers originally rebelled against.
Section 5. Lessons from the debate.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a bigger picture. Let's zoom out from the highly esoteric theology for a second. What does this incredibly niche clash between an author and a former rabbi tell us about the broader realities of modern internet discourse? Well, it gives us a perfect step-by-step autopsy of a failed argument. Step 1, an open invitation to discuss. Step 2, an immediate clash over rigid definitions. Step 3, because of those definitions, a hard refusal to engage with the actual source material. And step 4, a permanent intellectual standstill. It brilliantly shows how ego and predefined labels can entirely derail mutual learning. As we look at their final stances, here is the critic's dismissive conclusion. The last thing I want to read is something you claim is yours without other sources. No wonder you want me to read it so badly. Pure ego. Lol. The critic fundamentally believes that subjective, modern thought that isn't backed by ancient institutional purity is inherently flawed and narcissistic. For him, truth is something established way back in the ancient past, not something generated in the present.
And on the other side, we have Ouroboros' closing philosophy. I don't have a patent on the truth. I am not the owner of the truth. It is truth that is looking for me. Ouroboros maintains his position that the true path to knowledge requires humility, continuous evolution, and the willingness to subject everything, even your own deeply held definitions, to rigorous, open-minded questioning.
So what does this all mean for us? It leaves us with this final provocative thought. In the pursuit of absolute truth, do our own rigid definitions become the very prison we are trying to escape? When we enter a discussion with our minds already made up, refusing to even read the other side's perspective, are we really defending truth, or are we just defending our own egos? It's a powerful reminder to check our own intellectual openness the next time we step into a debate. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning and keep learning.